Welcome to the IonaHoops.com podcast with your host, Guy Flottico.
Happy New Year to Gale Nation. It's Season 3, Episode 14 of the IonaHoops.com podcast, and 2022 is now in our rear view mirror, along with the non-conference portion of our schedule. It's MAAC time for the next couple months, and we'll have Sam Federman with us this episode to recap the Iona and MAAC non-conference season that was, and get some fresh takes on what we can expect for the next 8 MAAC-alicious weeks. And speaking of the MAAC, we'll recap yesterday's victory over St. Peter's and look ahead to a road trip for the Gales next weekend at Marist and at Quinnipiac. And let's set the table for all of that with some Iona Iotas.
Iona Iotas.
How well do the MAAC standings correlate with the current MAAC net rankings? Iona's tied for first in sports of 50 net rating right now. Oh, by the way, that's way better than both Seton Hall and St. John's. And sure enough, Siena, which has looked really good in MAAC play thus far, has the second best MAAC net rating at 155. Blah for the MAAC, by the way, that the second best team is only 155. Anyway, starts to get a bit strange after that as Quinnipiac is at 158 and didn't even pick up a MAAC win until yesterday at awful Manhattan. And Quinny's even lost 2 games at home and getting the MAAC already. Where's Ryder, by the way? Well, they're next at least, but not until 223. Ew. I'll note that Mount St. Mary's, which hasn't had a great MAAC start, sits at 236. And we don't really see anyone else in the top 250, so we may as well not even go any further with this. Is Ken Pom more accurate than the net at this point as far as the MAAC is concerned? Well, actually, they're kind of similar. Iona's at 55, and then you jump to 169 to Quinny, 172 for Siena, and then 212 for Ryder. But still strange to see Quinny up there with the other three. The other three have entered Mondays with a 9-0 record in the MAAC, while Quinny was just 1-3. These silly computers.
Iona Iotas.
As I just noted, Iona's at 55 in Ken Pom, and we actually went up a few spots with the win over St. Peter's, which surprises me a little bit. Iona's overall numbers are solid: 61st offense, 56th defense, 7th in defensive block percentage, 14th in steal percentage allowed, 18th in offensive turnover percentage. Quite a few other categories, top 100 on both sides of the ball. Just solid numbers all around. A couple bad ones to call out. On 315th in free throw attempts per field goal attempts, which means even with yesterday's extensive day at the stripe, we don't get to the line all that much on the whole. On defense, we still foul too much, 285th in free throw attempts per field goal attempts, and only 247th in offensive rebounds percentage allowed. How about a couple individual numbers? First off, per Ken Pom, Walter Clayton ranks number 1 in free throw shooting at 98%, 44 of 45 on the year. Incredible. Here's something fun. Iona has 2 guys in the top 92 players nationally in block percentage. That's the percentage of shots blocked per 40 minutes per opponent's 2-point tries. Complicated, I know. Ashim is actually 81st in this category, and Nelly is 92nd. Again, that's per 40 minutes. For those of you who know that Nelly actually averages more blocks per game than Oz. Just in a couple other Ken Pom numbers, both for Barrick. He is 77th nationally at 67% 2-point field goal shooting, and his overall offensive rating is 94th nationally. That one's complicated to explain an overall offensive efficiency rating, but it's still a heck of a number no matter how you slice it for a guy who's known for his defense.
Iona Iotas.
The Iona women's team is making its case that it's going to be in the thick of the MAAC race this year. The Lady Gales rode a monstrous second half Saturday in routing Marist in Poughkeepsie 76-55 to move to 7-5 overall and 2-1 in the MAAC. The one loss was a 6-point setback at Fairfield back on December 19th. Got to note that the Lady Stags are all alone in first place in the MAAC, so we'll get another crack at them at Hines. But in the win against Marist, the Lady Gales rode some in-your-face defense to put up 53 in the second half. Juana Camillon had 22, Ketsia Theus had 14.6 assists, and Thorana Hajkar had 12 points, 5 steals, spearheading that D. Iona shot 56% for the game, and get this, 92% from the field in the fourth quarter. Wild. Anyway, this team's fun to watch. They make shots and they get up and down. If you haven't checked them out yet, what are you waiting for? All right, Let's recap yesterday's MAAC victory over St. Peter's. In my preview of the Iona St. Peter's game, I talked about my concerns regarding a holiday hangover. The team's been on the road. They spent a bunch of time in a wonderful place, Hawaii. We've seen this before. Teams often stumble when they come back from those kind of trips in these scenarios. On top of that, Iona was going to be down 2 starters for this one. As a couple days before the game, IonaHoops.com broke the news that Quinn Sosinski's injury is back and nagging, so he's back on the shelf, and Barrick is still nursing the injury from the SMU game. So all of this set the table for danger. But yesterday the team had a couple really good stretches, one in the first half and one to start off the second half. And that plus stellar D throughout was enough in a 73-55 win. Iona started this one with an 11-2 lead, led by 12 at the half, started the second half quickly, leading by as many as 21, and yet it never really seemed like Iona ever kicked this into high gear. Now, once Iona surged ahead early in the second, Rick Pitino subbed much more freely, and a couple guys, most notably Anton Brookshire, got extended minutes. The D held its ground, but the O had a rough second half, so you never saw that buzzsaw type of run that the Gales have used all season at Heinz to just overwhelm everyone, including St. Louis. So, this is hard to say in an 18-point win, but it was sort of a lackluster effort, especially in the second stanza. Certainly St. Peter's was not going to muster enough to make a game of this. The Gales did get some notable performances. Nelly had 16 points, 14 boards, 3 assists, and 4 blocks. Walter Clayton, 18 points, 5 rebounds. Osborne Chima, 14 points, 5 boards. Dennis Jenkins did not have a great day scoring-wise, shooting the ball. He ended up with 9 points, but he also had 9 rebounds and 6 assists and 3 blocks. This is how a lot of Iona's MAAC games are going to go this season, I have a feeling. You'd think, anyway, especially at home. Though I hope we see more even performances and better play from the role players moving forward. And those bench guys will be important as Iona hits the road for league games. Before we move on from St. Peter's, let's listen into the very brief press conference yesterday featuring Walter Clayton, Nelly Jr. Joseph, and Rick Pitino.
Well, coming off the Christmas break, just what was the mindset going in? You got off to the 11-2 start. Was the plan just to come out aggressive?
Yeah, for sure. We know today the plan was, St. Peter's is an aggressive team. Be more aggressive. That's how they're going to play. They're going to get in you, foul you, so just basically be more aggressive.
Walt, what do they do here at Iona that, drills that defensive first mentality into everyone in this program?
What drills or what, drills it into us?
Yeah.
Coach P, every day, just even today, it wasn't a great defensive performance. We, good win, but y'all still didn't play good defense coming there. So every day, just drilling that into our minds.
What does he say or do that's just so effective that gets everyone to buy in, even the newcomers and everyone who kind of comes in?
He shows the stats, and today they shot 42%. That ain't good. That's probably the highest they done shot all season. So he just shows us the stats and basically just talk about it.
Nelly, 16 points, 14 rebounds. How would you say your progress has gone so far this year?
I would say it's the way I practice, because we practice hard all the time. So, so I have to play hard all the time. So that's what I feel like, yeah.
Nelly, a lot of the points on that double-double came from the free throw line. Are you growing more comfortable there? And how do you feel kind of stepping up to the line?
I feel like I'm still struggling to make my free throws, but I feel like I'm getting better too, shooting free throws. So I feel like I'm getting it.
All good?
That's it.
Quick and easy.
Yeah, good. Appreciate y'all. Thank y'all.
No pressure.
Take care. Yes, sir. You too. Thank
Are you
y'all.
limping?
Huh?
Are you limping?
Nah, I'm good.
All right.
Just a little bit.
Don't have it like that, Rick.
A lot of times teams, and I notice working there, when they come back from Hawaii, it's very difficult on them. And practices have been very difficult with us because I don't think not too many teams have done what we did. Go out to Las Vegas, play 2 a.m, come back, go out to New Mexico, take 23 hours to get to New Mexico, play without sleep the next day in practice, and then obviously go to Hawaii. So It's great for our program to have that type of exposure. Prior to this, we've had 4 nationally televised games back to back, and that's great. So we're excited about that. We had a tough time coming back because we have major injuries and no bench. Quinn is probably going to be a season type injury where we play him one day, rest him one day, play him one day, rest him one day. He's shut down now probably for a week. Probably will miss the next weekend. Barracks should come back soon. I thought he'd be back by now, actually. So our bench is a little weak right now, and teams like Siena and Ryder have a very deep bench, and we don't right now. So we just got to be smart, do the right things defensively, and develop the guys that don't play very much.
Rick, coming back from Hawaii, what was the mindset first couple days in practice after you come back home?
We had 2 or 3 of the worst practices of the season because I was well aware of what goes on when you come back from Hawaii. It just takes a lot out of you, but you can double that because of Las Vegas and New Mexico. But we responded with a very good game, especially at the offensive end. We did a lot of really, really good things.
Rick, how do you feel your team has stepped up in terms of, like you mentioned, the tough schedule, but also the injuries?
To be very honest and transparent, we're an average to good team. We're trying to become a great team. We're not as good as we were last year at this point because our injuries have taken a toll on us. But I think we have the potential to last year's team stayed like this. They were veterans, they stayed like this, very good. This team is way below that, but they have a chance to get here. We just have to improve. Nelly has definitely gotten a lot better. We have cut off Nelly's right arm in practice. We won't let him use all the drills. He has to use his left hand. And it's paid huge dividends for us doing that. So he's gotten a lot better. The guards are very good. We got to get, obviously, Silas and Sadiku better. We got to get Michael Jefferson better, Anton Brookshire better. They've got to improve, and they're not ready to play right away.
Follow up on Nelly. Can you quantify his maturation this year? He goes for 16 and 14 today. What can you say about his progression?
It's happened in the last 3 weeks, and really cutting off his. We wanted him to develop an up and under, which he's getting real good at, and a left hand. He had neither. So he's worked real hard in player development, those 2 things, and it's paid huge dividends. He's playing great basketball right now at every phase of the game. He's really maturing into a very good basketball player.
When you talk about Oz's weight and adding to it, what would that allow him to do?
We can't do it. We can't do it. We've tried everything.
But if you did, what is
it? Would just he wouldn't get beat as much defensively. He'd be much stronger. Wouldn't get pushed around. I mean, he can get away with it in the MAAC, but once you play non-MAAC competition where they have big people, he gets pushed around. But we've tried everything. We've failed miserably. It's the first time I've failed with weight, losing or gaining in my 45 years. First time. Whether it was Walter McCarty, Nazi Mohammed, every skinny guy we've put on muscle and weight, every heavy guy we've got to lose weight. This is the first time that I've failed in my life with that. I'm very disappointed, and a lot of the fitness centers have written me letters saying they're very disappointed in me.
All good?
Rick, what did Cruz Davis show behind the scenes that led you to go with him for the starting 5 today?
Well, Barrick's out, and they go small. So it's more matchups than it is Cruz Davis.
Okay. All right. Thanks, guys.
Okay. Happy New Year, everybody.
You too.
Happy New Year.
All right, let's preview Iona's 2-game road trip at Marist on Friday and at Quinnipiac on Sunday. Earlier in the year when I did the preview of Iona's game against St. Bonaventure, I noted that no team was ravaged by more than the Bonnies. Well, Marist may be second in that race, as they saw most of their roster head out of Po-Town during the offseason as well. Quick, can anyone even name anybody on Marist's roster? Didn't think so. Foxes are a horrible offensive team, 346 nationally per Ken Palm. And even their D isn't too stellar despite John Dunn still at the helm. That said, Dunn may have found something in D2 transfer Patrick Gardner, a 6'11 center, who's leading the Foxes with 17 points and 7 rebounds per game. Sophomore guard Noah Harris is probably the best of the rest at 9.5 points, though 6'5 junior forward Javon Cooley is doing okay at 8 points and 5 boards per game. So they don't do anything really well on the offensive end, really, but it's worth noting that despite Gardner inside, the team relies completely on three-pointers for more than 40% of their actual overall offense among the nation's leaders. So they will try to shoot and shoot and shoot and shoot from outside, no question. On D, yeah, they're a little better, but nothing stunning. They actually defend the 2 pretty well, but are one of the worst teams in the land at defending the 3. Now, we got to remember something here. It was just a year ago, Iona had to steal the win at Marist last year. And don't think this team won't remember that here, or Patino for that matter. Foxes are not good, but it's a road league game with a tougher foe in Quinnipiac following 2 days later. Just a reminder here that there are no gimmies in league play. Every year, we look at the Quinnipiac Bobcats roster and we see lots of talent and a team that can challenge in the MAAC. And then you look up at March, and the Bobcats are nowhere to be found. That's Baker Dunleavy's legacy thus far in Hamden. And this year is no different, perhaps even more so, as Quinny put up a stellar non-conference record. But here we go again. The Bobcats are just 1-3 in the MAAC after finally getting their first league win against lowly Manhattan in their last effort. They've already lost 2 MAAC home games to Niagara and Siena. What's more, they've got a tough date at Ryder before hosting us on Sunday. So they could be looking at 1-4 in the league when we come in. And yet, this is a dangerous, dangerous game for Iona. Let's take a look at their roster. The guy to watch entering the season was going to be Matt Blanc. And the 6'4 senior guard has been good, 11.1 points, 4.3 boards, 35% from 3. But in reality, the Bobcats are a really balanced unit. Columbia transfer 6'7 grad forward Ike Nwiki actually leads the team in scoring 11.3 points per game. Also has 6.6 boards per game. They're also getting 10.9 points and 42% three-point shooting from 5'10 junior guard Desi Jones, and 9.9 points, 4.3 boards, 36% three-point shooting from 6'3 junior guard Lewis Courtwright. On O, Quinny makes threes, hits the glass well, so they can be challenging in those regards because those are things that Iona has been susceptible to. On D, they're okay, not great, but not bad. Unlike most MAAC teams, they play a tempo, though, on par with Iona. So it'll be an interesting matchup against a team with ability that may be fairly desperate. All in all, with these 2 games, Iona needs to show it can get it done on both ends of the floor, on someone else's floor, if the Gales are truly to be a player on the March stage. Let's now bring in Sam Federman of Mid-Major Madness to talk about what transpired for the MAAC in non-conference play and what we can expect as we settle into the league grind. All right, as the MAAC non-conference schedule winds down, we thought it was a great time to bring back Sam Federman, a Mid-Major Madness writer, and oh, by the way, class of 2027 for Syracuse. Yes, he is that young, but damn it, he is that good. Sam, welcome back to the program.
Thank you so much, and thank you for the great introduction. Very excited for MAAC's season. It hasn't been the best non-conference slate so far. Not even your Gales have been the absolute best.
Well, here's the funny thing. I actually had Iona's 1 game less in the win column than they've gotten. So I'm fine with what Iona's done. I really have no
I
gripes.
would agree with being fine. I just think that all of the games they lost were winnable.
Yes, without question. And there's been debates on the Iona message board about how tough or not tough the non-conference schedule's been. So that's an interesting way. When if I can ask you about that, is the net so rigged that it's basically impossible for an Iona to put together a decent schedule, because even like the Vermonts of the world are going to drop, the Penns of the world are going to drop, whatever.
Well, okay. Let's not act like this wasn't. Let's not act like this was not a tough schedule. It's the 55th hardest schedule in the country per Ken Palm non-conference schedules. Iona did a good job of scheduling. Now, obviously, there were no bye games. There was no There was no Binghamton on the schedule this year. It was all tough teams week in, week out. And Iona was up to the task most of the time. They had a couple tough games that they didn't win. I think overall, Iona should be proud of the schedule that they put together because it's a good one.
Okay. All right. So let's talk about the rest of the MAAC. I was optimistic going in. I thought maybe, obviously Manhattan took a hit before the season even started. We don't have no idea what they would be doing right now. But so I'll give them a pass, although certainly they're, started off well in MAAC play anyway. But the MAAC, what's going on? Why are some of these teams just not performing to where they should be?
Well, every team has a different ailment. You look at Fairfield, and Bryson Goodine hasn't had the impact that I assumed he would. And it's mostly the three-point shooters, Jake Wojcik and TJ Long, who have really struggled this year, just not played at the level that we know that they're capable of playing. And we're familiar with Wojcik as MAAC fans, as a guy that can put the ball in the basket.
Okay, and let's talk about Ryder a little bit. I was so high on them to the point where I don't think I even switched Iona and Ryder my preseason projections to like October. And yet here we are looking at Ryder and it's like, come on, what's happening here?
Yeah, kind of similar, where the transfer hasn't had as great of an impact. Alan Beatrand hasn't had as big of an impact as I thought he would. Now, then again, he's played well, certainly athletic guy. DJ Murray's been awesome. Mervyn James has been solid. But I just think overall, when it comes to this team, I think we're going to need to see more out of the bench unit. They have not really had impressive performances with Tyrell Bladden hasn't really been great.
No.
Tariq Ingram hasn't played much since November. Overall, I think that Ryder needs to see more from their second unit of guys, the Corey McKeithans of the world.
Okay. So one team that I probably was a little higher on than some others, and now it's starting to prove that I was right, are our beloved Siena Saints. I kind of said I really like them top three. I still feel like they're pretty safe to finish top three in the MAAC this year. They're about what I thought they were going to be. What about you?
Yeah, I said the whole preseason that I wouldn't be at all surprised if they finished in the top three, but I didn't have them in my top three at any point. And this has proven it. They have big wins. They have bad losses. They are around a little bit. They're better than we thought. They're better than we thought they would be. But I still am not convinced that they're going to be world beaters in the conference. I think they're much closer to the pack than they are to the top. They would definitely be number 2 so far, though. JV McCollum has arguably been the best guard in the league. And I think he looks like a guy who could get like NBA looks in terms of his ability on the ball.
All right. And what do you make of Quinnipiac? They have a nice gaudy record, although played really nobody. And yet, you see potential there, but are they going to be a top 5 team when this is all done?
I think you can still see the relics of kind of a not so great coached team on Quinnipiac. Baker Dunleavy brought in a lot of talent, but I think you can still see that they're kind of disorganized. They lost Elijah Taylor for the season. They lost Quinn Guth for a while. Louis Courtwright has been very good for them. Desi Jones and Matt Belanc are awesome. Ike Nweke has been great. They got a lot of players that are great players. Paul Otieno has been important for them. I just think that when it comes to this Quinnipiac team, again, closer to the pack than the top, probably 3, 4, 5 in the league.
All right. And how about, what do you think? What do you make of Marist? I mean, we kind of assumed they weren't going to be great. I still feel like they have some decent pieces and they could end up being a little better than most of us thought. But at the same time, the results haven't bared that out.
No, they can't. There's not a lot on this team that you have to look forward to, especially with Anthony Cooper having been out with personal reasons. Pat Gardner is an extremely talented player that probably could play maybe even at a high major level. 6'11", he can stretch the floor, he can rebound, he can block shots. but he is the only reason this is not the worst offense in college basketball.
That's fair. Okay, there's one other team I want to ask you about, and it's another one that I'm not surprised they're not doing well right now, but I would not be surprised to see them playing better as the season goes on, and that's St. Peter's.
Yeah, with St. Peter's, you look at their team and you look, they're really missing Umar Diame, and not just Umar Diame, but Casey Nadefo, Clarence Rupert, all the big guys that we know as shot blockers, shot contesters. So you look at what they got. They got Thomas Toot, Jerry Nagopot, and Mohammed So, who are three guys that certainly can block shots, and Corey Washington can as well. But they have the worst record of defending without fouling in the league by a significant margin. All of their big men are foul machines that end up going down and picking up multiple fouls in first halves in quick succession. So it makes their defense a lot worse than it should be based on their personnel. And their offense is really bad, especially when Jalen Murray's not on the court. Although Isaiah Dasher has now played 8 straight games with over 10 points.
All right. Gun to your head. Who's going to finish second in the MAAC?
Siena.
And how many games will they be behind Iona?
3 or 4.
3 or 4. Okay. So you're thinking Iona, what, 17-3?
17-3. Yeah.
Okay. I still feel 16-4 is fair, but I'm not a pessimist. I just kind of
I don't think you're wrong. I just think I look at this and say, all right, anywhere from 15-5 to 19-1, and I wouldn't be surprised.
That's that it is the MAAC, and people forget that. So I want to ask you that too. Everybody talks about the talent difference in the MAAC. Iona is clearly the best team, but life on the road in league play is always an adventure. And sometimes
life on the road in college basketball. Life on the road. I honestly think non-conference road games are just as hard as conference road games.
Iona's 0-2 on the road in the non-conference.
And it's so difficult to win these non-conference road games, and I honestly think it's easier to go on the road in conference play, because when you're scheduling these games, they're scheduled for you. It's a business trip. When you're going on these road games, you're scheduling them. You're picking and choosing. These teams are inviting you into their house, and they want to kick your ass.
Yeah. And that's what makes it fun, because when Iona goes up to Siena, it's gonna be like last year. They're gonna have thousands of people. They're gonna do special student giveaways. They're gonna have 8,000 there instead of 6,000. It's gonna be their Super Bowl. That will be a tough environment.
It's gonna be their Super Bowl, and they're gonna bring in triple as many fans as you guys can bring in at any point in the season.
Right. And I'm going to that anyway, because I'm a sucker for that. But all right,
that's a Friday night though, right?
That is a Friday night.
Yeah, so I can't make that.
What other? When you think of road games in the MAAC, you see. And I don't think
Buffalo.
It has anything to do with the standings. You think one of the Buffalo games?
Buffalo's tough. Mount could be tough.
Mount could be tough. That's right. I
good.
like Mount.
They're good. That's far away. Fairfield has when they come in, there's a lot of fans there. Manhattan always fills it up for that game.
Yeah. And that's what happens when you have a target, is that, everybody's going to get your best shot from people.
Quinnipiac plays their best game. They could take one. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if Iona loses a home conference game.
Oh, I was just going to say that. Now that would shock me. The way we've drawn at home, the way we kind of just buzzsaw teams at home. All right. So who has the type of game that can come in and be really annoying and give Iona fits at Hines? Never mind on their place.
St. Peter's. They did it last year. St. Peter's did. And I think they have talent to do it in terms of a backcourt with Dasher and Sadler and Murray, of guys that can just get to the basket and score and shoot from the outside. And they got Corey Washington on the boards. If they can stay out of foul trouble in that game, certainly can happen. You look at Siena, you look at Fairfield. I would say there's about a 40 to 50% chance that Iona drops one conference home game.
Wow. All right.
So I think, you look at it, they've already won 2. So you have 8 games left.
Yeah.
That's 8 opportunities to lose. That's 8 opportunities.
That is a lot.
That's a lot,
They'll
and
be
that's-
double-digit favorites in all of them if I'm doing my math right.
Yes, but that's still 8 opportunities, which mathematically, if you do it, and if they're 90% to win in every game, 0.9 to the 0.9 to the 10th power to the 8th power, 43%, which means there's a 57% chance. If you have a 90% probability to win each game, there's a 57% chance that you're going to lose one of them.
Sam, you didn't tell me there was going to be math. Come on, we're humble people here at Anna. We can't do numbers in our head like that. So, Sam, that's been awesome to have you back on. Thank you for coming, stopping by, giving us this little pre-MAAC look for the most part here. It's going to be interesting to see what happens in these next couple of months. I will continue to tell Jaden Daly that you're better than him. And
Good.
And we and thank you again for coming on. We really appreciate it. And we will be catching up with you right before the MAAC tournament.
And go Orange.
Take care, man. Thanks for coming on.
All right.
Thanks again to Sam Federman for dropping by to talk MAAC hoops with us. And now it's time for the Gales to hit the road in league play. Are they up to the challenge? Will they still be perfect in the MAAC after this trip? Time will tell. See you on the other side. Go Gales.
Thank you for listening to this edition of the IonaHoops.com podcast. This podcast is a production of IonaHoops.com with publisher Guy Filatico. The opinions shared during this podcast are those of Guy Filatico, IonaHoops.com, and any featured guests. This podcast is not affiliated with Iona University Athletics or the university itself. Thank you for supporting IonaHoops.com.